I'm attracted to women. That's usually who I date. And now that I'm a woman, that means I'm and I'm a lesbian.
Welcome back to Woke Folks. Strap in for a fast-paced rundown of today's boldest confrontations and enlightening lessons.
The question is, do you want our nation to end up like a third world country such as Brazil or a disaster like Germany and Sweden right now?
Okay, so Brazil's a second world country. Technically, it's a developing country. It's not like a fully underdeveloped country or a failed state.
Then why is there a far-right candidate winning at the moment?
I mean, if you want to argue Brazilian politics, I agree that Brazilian politics has been dominated by the far left, but I'm not sure that that's of tremendous interest. Let's talk about the first question. Okay, when I say I don't care about the browning of America, what I mean is I don't care about ethnicity. It doesn't make any difference to me. The only thing that makes a difference to me is the ideals of the people who are coming across the border. Now, when people say I am pro-illegal immigration, I do not know where in the hell they would possibly get that. This seems to, when people repeatedly say stuff like this, and I see this meme all the time, oh, Shapiro cares about a Jewish ethno-state, but he doesn't care about illegal immigration. I was further right than Donald Trump was in the last election cycle on illegal immigration. I opposed the 2006 amnesty deal. I opposed the 2010 amnesty deal. I've consistently been anti-illegal immigration. I supported the wall. This is just a lie. The idea that I'm pro-illegal immigration is not true in the slightest. What I have said is that we ought to deal with how to stop the influx of illegal immigration and then deal with the people who are here and separate off the two issues. And when it comes to the folks who are here illegally, what we should do is we should assess those folks in the same way we assess everybody else coming into the country. Are they going to add economically to the country and culturally to the country? Are they going to make the country a better place? Or are they going to make the country a worse place? And that involves assimilation. Now, as far as the idea of the Jewish ethno-state, I don't care very much about Jewish ethnicity. Jewish ethnicity makes no difference to me. What does make a difference to me is Jewish ideals, because I care about Judeo-Christian ideals in the United States, and I care about Jewish ideals in Israel, which is why I don't care, and I'm very happy, that tens of thousands of Ethiopian Jews who are black were flown to Israel to become Israelis. I'm very happy that tens of thousands of Russian Jews who were Russian were flown from...
Ben Shapiro delivers a masterclass to a lefty wokey on the complexities of illegal immigration.
I wish they would stop remaking Disney classics. We talked about this, I think, a couple months back, this remake, the Snow White. They have to make it for woke audiences. Does Disney really not have any other ideas? Can they not come up with anything new that they have to remake all the classics? So that's my first point on it. And second of all, I believe in protecting children. I just find it quite interesting that the same woke liberals that are worried about this hunting scene in Bambi have no problem exposing children to LGBTQ themes, telling them that they are born in the wrong body, encouraging them to be non-binary. I mean, really, I'm waiting for this Bambi remake to have Bambi as a trans deer, or maybe the mother died from climate change. So again, the things that the left and the liberals are triggered by always astounds me. I think that there are far worse things you can expose children to, that the left is exposing children to, than a hunting scene that's actually a reality of life, especially here in the United States with a lot of hunters, love it or hate it. That is a fact of where we are in this country, and I think in many places...
A lady vocally criticizes Disney for adding too much wokeness to classic films. Nostalgia isn't what it used to be.
Policy analysts and policy makers must have an accurate understanding of the societal problems they are seeking to combat. Unfortunately, too many policymakers appear completely uninformed about basic factual realities related to guns and gun violence. Don't misunderstand me. We all want safer communities. But the characteristics distinguishing so-called assault weapons from non-assault weapons are not factors like caliber, lethality, or rate of fire. Proposals to ban scary-looking features like barrel shrouds or pistol grips are, for all intents and purposes, proposals to force law-abiding citizens to own guns that are harder for them to handle, harder to fire accurately, and more likely to cause them injuries even when they are being used for lawful purposes. Moreover, semi-automatic rifles are not a meaningful driving factor behind rates of gun violence. 2/3 of gun deaths in this country are suicides, where the type of firearm is essentially irrelevant. With respect to gun crimes, over 90% are committed with handguns. Rifles of any kind are definitively used in only 3 to 4% of gun homicides every year, and an American citizen is 4 times as likely to be stabbed to death than they are to be shot to death with a rifle of any kind. Despite frequent claims that semi-automatic rifles are the weapon of choice for mass public shooters, In the last decade, over half of these shootings have been carried out with handguns alone. On the other hand, semi-automatic rifles like the AR-15 are so well suited for defensive action against threats in a civilian context that the Department of Homeland Security quite literally designates them as personal defense weapons for law enforcement officers. It is little wonder, then, that millions of law-abiding citizens in this country also choose these types of semi-automatic rifles as their own personal defense weapons.
A gun expert stuns Democrats during a hearing with a barrage of hard facts and figures.
The party of slavery, prior to the Civil War, metamorphosed into the party of after the Civil War. And this carried well into the 20th century. In fact, when we talk about things like the Klan, it's always amusing to me. People go, well, what about David Duke? This is the precise type of counterexample intended to mislead. Because if you fairly were to say, let me really look at the topic. Let me make a list of all the Ku Klux Klan leaders, every Grand Dragon and Grand Kleagle, going back to the 1870s to now. And let's just put an R or a D after their name, 99% of them would be Democrats. That's a fact. The idea of David Duke is a false flag intended to camouflage attention and prevent a legitimate generalization from being made. Now, so the Democratic Party isn't the party of race because of what happened before slavery. The Democratic Party self-consciously embraced after slavery. Lyndon Johnson, this is a very good example because Lyndon Johnson is supposed to be a metaphor for the whole Democratic Party. Yeah, he was kind of a in his old Texas country boy days, the narrative goes, but then he became a marvelous, morally enlightened person and championed the Civil Rights Act. I would submit that if you read anything about Lyndon Johnson, you will see that this is a flat-out lie. The fact of the matter is that Lyndon Johnson was routinely using the N-word after the Civil Rights Act. And there is the multiple examples of this from Robert Caro, from Doris Kearns Goodwin, from Lyndon Johnson's own driver. This is corroborated, it's attested, it's indisputable, and yet it is pushed under the rug by progressive historians who need the fake narrative. The fake narrative is the narrative of conversion. There was no conversion. Lyndon Johnson, once a bigot, always a bigot. So now
Dinesh D'Souza dives deep into history, schooling a Wokey on slavery and racism with meticulous reasoning.
My question is about climate change. So if I remember correctly, I heard you once say in a video that you do believe that human activity does have some sort of effect on the climate.
Yep.
So one, I would just like you to explain a little bit of your understanding about climate change.
Sure.
And another question is, are there any government policies that you would support in terms to mitigate carbon emissions? Yeah.
Okay, so so my perspective on climate change is, number one, I'm not a climatologist, but accepting the IPCC reports, you have to take into account the fact that modeling has been wrong for 20 to 30 years. It's always been overestimating the amount of climate change that's actually taken place. But virtually every reputable scientist, including folks who are called skeptics, believe that the climate is warming. There's an argument about as to how much, and that over 50% of that warming is probably attributable to human activity. Now that raises other questions, which is, okay, so let's say the Earth is warming. What kind of damage is that actually going to do? And this is a serious question, right? Let's say that the Earth is warming and we're causing it. Does that mean that it's the day after tomorrow and massive floods in New York and Dennis Quaid running around with Jake Gyllenhaal trying to avoid the freeze? No, it doesn't, right? It means that over the course of the next 100 years that the water level is going to rise a rather predictable number of inches or feet, and then humans will migrate based on those weather patterns, as humans have done since human beings became human beings and started walking on 2 feet. So, I'm a little more sanguine about the possibility of long-term climate change than a lot of the catastrophists who seem to assume that there's going to be tremendous damage done. All the talk, for example, about the storms are becoming that more severe and they're doing that much more damage. The statistics really don't back that up. What they really back up is that we're just building more stuff in the path of hurricanes, that we're building more expensive stuff in the path of hurricanes. And so when the storms break that stuff, then it's more expensive for us to fix that stuff. Because the number of hurricanes actually hasn't changed markedly over time. And when folks say the intensity of hurricanes has changed, what they really mean is that the amount of cost associated with the hurricane has changed. As
Ben Shapiro lays down the facts on climate change, leaving a Wokey schooled and perhaps a bit cooler.
Stance on abortion.
Okay.
Right, so you define life as starting at conception through biology, pretty much. But I think you take the stance that life is intrinsically valuable because it's life. And that's where I disagree. I think there's two things that make life valuable. I think consciousness, the ability to experience pain, senses and stuff like that, and personal identity. In particular, psychological continuity identity. So the fact that we have memories, we have relationships, people have relationships to us. I think those are
Do you need both of those, or is it either or? I just want to clarify your position.
Either or.
Okay, so if it's either or, then people with Alzheimer's have real continuity problems, you can't kill them.
No, because people still have relationships with them though, right? So like just because you have like...
I mean, you have a relationship with them, but with people with advanced stage Alzheimer's, they really don't have a relationship.
Okay, but for the sake of example, like let's say someone dies, right? The family gets to decide what you do with the body. Because I know what you say. When you say, someone says, oh, it's just consciousness, and then they're brain dead, you say, well, can you stab them? No, you can't. Because that's the family's decision what to do with the body. It's the person's decision what they want to do.
So if the family decides to stab them, it's okay to stab the
when they're brain dead? Yeah, if they want to
No, not brain dead. Let's say that you're comatose for a specifically and predictably short period of time, say 9 months.
Say now, well, what is the person... yeah. No. So I would say on the legal grounds, it would depend if what the person put in their will. If the person has made clear statements like, hey, don't pull the plug on 9 months, then don't do that. Because I think the first choice is...
Right, but let's say the person has not made such clear statements. Say the person can't make such clear statements.
So and he's just in a complete coma?
Let's say the person has not drawn up a living will or had conversations like this. They're in a car crash, they get in a coma, you know that in 9 months they're going to come out of the coma and they're going to be fine. Are you allowed to stab? Can the family say, you know what, these 9 months, stab the dude.
Wait, so they're fine, so they're going to get their memories back?
Let's say they don't get their memories back.
Then I would say then that person is dead. And yeah, if the family wants to pull the plug, that's fine.
A pro-choice Wokey gets hilariously owned by Ben Shapiro in a debate that turns comically one-sided.
A reproductive system.
I have to confess, I'm skeptical of your reading of the Kentucky law. I have not read the exact language of that law myself, so I can't say for sure that you're wrong about that. What I do know is that, what I can speak to is the Tennessee law, for example, where I'm from, which bans these procedures, castration, mutilation, specifically mentions that if someone has an actual valid medical issue, then obviously they don't apply. It's the same thing as, we should ban cosmetic double mastectomies for gender-confused women. Obviously, if you have cancer, you need a double mastectomy, then you would not be forbidden from getting that. It's very easy to write that language into the law. Now, that's the first thing. Going to your point about intersex, a couple of points here, a couple of things you said that I think aren't true. The first is you said, how many intersex people?
There's currently, the United States clarifies in their census that there is 5.6 million Americans, which is double the amount of trans adults in the United States.
5.6 million. Do you know how, for that figure, to arrive at that figure, do you know how intersex is defined?
Yes, intersex is defined as either having a chromosomal, here I actually have the exact definition pulled up on my phone from the US Census, because I wanted to make sure. It includes people with an extra or missing sex-linked chromosome, those born with other physical variations that don't fit into the categories of male or female. This is seen as someone who has, but also has a P.
Yeah. The issue is that the caveat there about other physical variations. So one thing that you should be aware of is that the actual number of intersex people has been, over the years, drastically inflated. And one thing that they've done is they've included, for example, a male who has, an abnormally small penis size.
Matt Walsh breaks down the realities of gender-affirming care to an uninformed Wokey.
Think the climate change agenda is a hoax?
Let me give you several different questions. Question number one, are global surface temperatures going up? Yes.
Yes.
Are we sure, or do we have any evidence that those rising temperatures are bad for human beings?
Yes.
And the answer to that is no. Do more people die of cold temperatures or warm ones?
Cold temperatures.
Okay, how many more people die of cold temperatures than warm ones?
Can't tell you, but I know it's more cold temperatures.
It's about 8 times as many people. Carbon dioxide is plant food, and plants tend to grow in warmer atmospheres than in cooler ones. So 40 years ago, we used to teach kids in the country that deforestation was a main problem. We're seeing a greening effect from the planet. And the thing they used to worry about 50 years ago back then was that we were actually going to die of an ice age, because more human beings have died of ice ages than they've died from warm temperatures ever.
We're currently in an ice age.
The reality is more people are dying as a consequence of that. So why on earth are we worried if global surface temperatures go up 1 degree over the next century? That's really where the climate change agenda ends up being a hoax.
Vivek Ramaswamy tackles climate change myths, educating a Wokey with clear, concise arguments.
Hey everyone, I'm so sorry. I'm really struggling right now. You guys know that I'm attracted to women, and that's usually who I date. And what I didn't expect with this transition is now that I'm a woman, that means I'm gay. And I'm a lesbian. This is not what I planned on when I transitioned. I don't know how to process.
A trans woman who is attracted to women but identifies as gets a reality check. Technically, that makes him straight.
Instead of saying he is a trans,
I would say he is trans.
instead of saying he last year,
I would say he transitioned last year.
instead of saying he changed genders,
He transitioned or he affirmed his gender.
instead of saying he was born a girl,
I would say he was assigned female at birth.
and you were assigned male at birth and you identify as,
Male.
and I was assigned male at birth and I identify as,
Non-binary.
instead of saying before he became a boy,
I would say before he transitioned.
instead of saying when he was a girl,
I would say when he presented as a woman.
instead of saying being trans means you're gay,
I would say gender identity and sexual orientation are not the same.
also,
Mind your own business.
A heartfelt plea for children to be saved from overly wokey parenting. Sometimes less is more.
The first day I had 25 students. By day 2, I had 19 because 6 parents switched out of the class because they saw me and they were like, there's no freaking way, before I even got a word in. Do I think that it is okay for a parent to see me and go, not around my kid? No, I don't think that's okay. I feel like that's really crossing the line.
It's still the right of the parent to make that decision as to whether or not they want their child to learn from you.
Okay.
Like, it's still that parent's right. Like, you can disagree with their motivations, their motives, their ideas,
Would you
but
say
it is still their child.
One man stands firm on parents' rights to shield their kids from wokey indoctrination in schools.
Let's move on to the larger point, which is, according to you, this party division is a geographical and not a partisan divide. And the technique you're using to demonstrate this is, you could call it controlling for region. Controlling for region, you're saying, the discrepancy between the parties at least diminishes, even if it doesn't go away altogether. The problem with the controlling for region is that you cannot control for something when the party itself is pushing to achieve that regional phenomenon. Let me tell you what I mean. We think today of the South as being the racist side of the country. C. Van Woodward tells us, the Yale historian, that after the Civil War, in the early 20th century and in the late 19th century, when the segregation debate, he goes, there was massive opposition to segregation in the South. He goes, this emergence of a Southern racist party, he says, was not foreordained. It was not the automatic result of the war. He goes, don't confuse slavery with racism. They're related, but they're not the same thing. Hold on, let me finish. The point I want to make is this. The Democratic Party cultivated the bigotry in the South that became a Southern phenomenon. So you can't now say, well, let's control for Southernness and take it all out and excuse all the Democrats because they're just being good old Southerners. I'm saying no. I'm saying that the Democrats polluted the South with a racist ideology and drove the Republicans out of the South. This was the whole point of the Ku Klux Klan. Racial was aimed at crushing the black Republican Party in the South. So you can't control for these things. The Democratic Party had its base in the South, and it was a base. The Republican...
Dinesh D'Souza explains how regional politics influence partition, enlightening a lefty on the nuances.
Capitalism is bad. I don't like it.
Yeah, really easy for someone to say that grew up in a really nice house in one of the best school districts in Texas.
I know, but it's...
Who has the rent paid for, that is able to go to Europe and on a whim with their sister, who's able to do girl math, who's able to be fun employed. Yeah, it's easy to say that the system's bad when you're doing that because you've never had to work for it. You never got to actually see what happens when you put in the work and get benefits and actually have a little bit of responsibility and actually build something or do anything. You've grew up in privilege beyond privilege beyond privilege beyond privilege. It's only the people who speak like you that grew up in a world where you've never had to do a single thing in your life. So I don't want to hear about that. What a joke.
I'm sorry. I just wish everybody had like...
I wish a lot of things. Wishing doesn't get people places. You try to create the best systems possible. This doesn't matter. Oh my...
A man uses solid facts to dismantle a wokie's claim that capitalism is inherently bad.
Because you want to see an end to death and destruction and everything that's taking place. But why is it happening? Why is it happening?
Why is it happening? You tell me.
For decades, Western imperialism has meddled across that entire region because it wants to maintain access to markets and resources. It is absolutely clear.
You think we've got a say over what happens in Saudi Arabia and places like that? Are you kidding me? Have you seen oil prices?
Up to the US government if you want to talk about Saudi Arabia. We're here talking about the attacks that Israel has conducted in Lebanon, which has killed hundreds of people.
No, those weren't attacks because attacks are aimed at civilians. These were targeted at themselves. Hold on a second. What did you make about attacks on Al-Qaeda fighters, militants? What about attacks on ISIS militants? Were they attacks when the West killed those people?
Listen. You're not interested in actually talking about what it is or where it comes from.
No, I don't think you know what is. A democratic nation state defending themselves, targeting militants who are firing rockets at their civilians. Responding to that with a targeted attack is not under any use. I mean, unless you're just going to make up every single definition of a word, that's not.
Israel is not a democratic state.
Israel's not a democratic state. So all those Israelis, including Arab Israelis, by the way, who go to vote in the polls, are they are they imagining that?
You know, even within Israel, I don't know if you've seen, there have been mass protests against Netanyahu and against what
wait a minute. People in a democratic country protesting, and weirdly, unlike any other country in the Middle East, not being shot by their own soldiers or arrested. How incredible. So it's a democratic state. So do people go and vote?
They were arrested, and actually I'd say the Israeli state
people who committed crimes were arrested.
Wokey views on Hezbollah and misconceptions about Israel being a non-democracy are corrected by an anchor's sharp insights.
Well, for example, like Make America Great Again, that was a term that he took off from Adolf Hitler.
Well, Hitler said make America great again?
No, he said make Germany great again.
Okay, so you know Hitler also had a dog. So does everyone have a dog? You know, he got that. You know Hitler was a vegetarian? So are all vegetarians Nazis? It's a logical fallacy, right?
I got you. I see what you're saying.
Just to say that just because Hitler did it, therefore, you know, no one can do those things sense. Hitler loved classical music, for example. I mean, but so what is Make America Great Again? Why are so many of your fellow friends wearing this? Here's why. And it's a good question because you're coming out of this in good faith. It's because the people wearing these MAGA hats in this audience that are sitting through this, they know that they're about to enter into a country when they graduate that is far worse off than what their parents had. And that is deeply unjust.
And how do you know that?
From every possible metric, from home ownership to income levels, to crime, to depression, to suicide, anxiety, alcohol addiction, drug addiction, every objective measurement that this generation is facing is worse off than their parents. This generation is more likely to kill themselves, more likely to get addicted to hard drugs, more likely to check out of society. Like, I mean, every possible metric that you look at, from misery index, from earning money, from disposable income, from money in the bank.
Let me ask you this.
The MAGA slogan, inspired by Hitler, Charlie Kirk steps in to debunk that myth with facts.
Want to catch wokey moments in 4K? Watch till the end, subscribe, like the video, and comment wokies for a chance to win a brand new iPhone 16 or a cash prize. Also, don't forget to check out the next video on the end screen for more chances to win.
Dislike of and anguish over social media is just growing and growing and growing. And it's part of our problem, particularly in democracies, in terms of building consensus around any issue. It's really hard to govern today. You can't, there's no, the referees we used to have to determine what's a fact and what isn't a fact are kind of, been eviscerated to a certain degree. And people go, and that people self-select where they go for their news or for their information. And then you just get into a vicious cycle. So it's really, really hard, much harder to build consensus today than at any time in the 45, 50 years I've been involved in this. And there's a lot of discussion now about how you curb those entities in order to guarantee that you're going to have, some accountability on facts, et cetera. But look, if people go to only one source and the source they go to is sick and, has an agenda and they're putting out disinformation, our First Amendment stands as a major block to the ability to be able to just, hammer it out of existence. So what we need is to win the ground, win the right to govern by hopefully having, winning enough votes that you're free to be able to implement change. Now, obviously, there are some people in our country who are prepared to implement change in other ways. And that's really dangerous.
John Kerry's controversial remark about the First Amendment blocking fact-checking prompts a debate on who decides what facts are.
I imagine you've seen the online discourse between the right and the left, the past few years with Pride events, about nudity, kink, kind of being in the same area as children. Do you think it's damaging to kids, or is it just a part of the community?
I say it's a bit of both. At the same time, it's up to parents to, express their kids into that type of environment, but at the same time is, you also understand there's people who've been repressed for so long. That's kind of their way of expressing themselves. I express myself as a puppy. Other people like to express themselves as leather daddies. Some people want to be nudists. Okay, but you always understand, there's a given place for those type of areas. There's the 18-plus area, there's the kid area. We should have those types of areas just to make sure that everyone's having a good time.
First thing that comes to mind when you hear the name Jesus Christ.
I say from the person from the Bible. That's about it. Just a person that people follow, understand. That's about it.
You see a lot of the kind of back and forth with Christians specifically, kind of condemning pride. They say it's, one of the 7 deadly sins, and that's the focus point of the celebration. What's your opinion on that?
I say it's just more stupidity. I think it's not even the religion itself. It's your personal choice.
A wokey in a dog mask defends bringing children to pride parades, claiming Jesus is just a character from the Bible.
There are parents who live in Chicago, one woman in particular, I won't say her name, but she has buried all 5 of her children because of gun violence in that city. I have yet to see a Black Lives Matter rally on some of the most dangerous blocks in that city, or in Baltimore, or in Philadelphia. Philadelphia, which is often referred to as Killadelphia, a city in which I watched a local reporter interviewed a man who runs a funeral home who said all of his victims last summer were young Black people in their teens, and that they were running out of places to bury the bodies. If Black Lives Matter, they would have mattered time and time again. Where Black Lives Matter was trying to kick police out of communities. If you went to their website and you read their words, they were an anti-family organization. They were a pro-Marxist organization. And the reason that some politicians in this country, I despise them so much, is that they were willing to tie themselves to that evil institution, which, by the way, laundered millions of dollars, and I'm sure no one will ever go to jail for it.
A Black man highlights the hypocrisy of BLM concerning gun violence in major cities.
I asked him to show us the deodorant. I would love to apply
So your situation is a high personality. How much were you neglected?
Are you Jordan Peterson?
Do you know what a high conflict personality is?
Are you a psychologist?
I'm educated.
What school did you go to?
It doesn't matter what school I went to. First of all, you got dry spit on the side of your mouth, so you need to go ahead and clean that right now.
Do I?
Yeah, you look.
I don't know how to clean it. Can you clean it for me?
I don't doubt. Oh, so that's what you do. Never mind. That's your shtick.
Wait, can you clean it for me or no?
Very sad.
Can you clean it for me? Wait, miss, you'll like the flip side.
And you know that's an ignorant way to stand, right?
Why?
You're over here, I tell you.
I'm actually half handicapped, so that's very offensive that you said that.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah,
can probably tell
I'm
that
super
you're
offended, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So lying and being a high conflict is part of your personality disorder. Why are you looking at women with your eyes?
Are you a woman?
Oh my god, so you...
Oh, I didn't even know, I'm sorry.
non-binary, so it doesn't really matter.
Hey, that's why I asked. I was trying to be polite. That's what you should do, right?
You young mother...
I love milk. It's very nutritious. Milk for life. Your hair's not even purple, it's green. Yeah.
Are you colorblind?
Yeah, maybe I am. Are you gonna make fun of me now?
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, you already made fun of me for being handicapped.
I did not.
Yeah.
No, I did
Why don't you just...
A woke feminist finds herself outmatched and triggered by a man's relentless trolling.
Women in America, we're told our life's purpose is to bear children, but there's no social supports when we do.
You have no social support when you bear children? Really? None? None at all? Not a single social support network? Next.
We're women in America. We could go to jail if we have a miscarriage.
Jail if you have a miscarriage. There was only one such report where I could find a supposed woman going to jail for having a miscarriage. But all we have to do is scroll down the article just a little bit and we can see that she took illicit drugs while pregnant. There was meth found in her unborn son's liver and brain. Next.
Women in America, we need permission from our husbands to have certain surgeries.
No, you don't. The only such procedure I ever hear feminists argue that they need their husband's permission to get is a hysterectomy, and we see that no state mandates spousal consent for this procedure. So no, there's no such surgery where a woman needs her husband's permission to be allowed to get the surgery. Next.
We're women in America. We can lose custody of our children to the same man who abused us in front of them.
What custody battle are y'all losing? Mothers have a 90% chance of winning child custody cases. Can you even definitively find a case where an abusive father won custody over the children? Or are you just saying that just to say it? Next.
We're women in America.
We don't even know how to define what a woman is. If you would have said that, that would have been true.
Woke arguments crumble as a man counters every point with robust facts.
What do you think about white men?
I think it's just the term white man, just immediate turn off.
What do you think of black men?
Love.
Oh, hell no. Do you think it's to, by default, not like white men?
I mean, I don't think so, because I think there's a difference between like and that's an interesting question.
You don't know what you're talking about, do you?
It's an interesting question.
Yeah, because like, I mean, I don't dislike, but there is like nervous feeling. I don't know.
So if you met someone who said that they get nervous around black men and that they've had bad experiences with black men, would you still consider that racist?
Ooh, yeah, I see your point.
A wokey claims white men are the problem, only to be cornered by a reporter using her own logic against her.
Playing a role in making them think that they might have gender identification issues. This is Chloe Cole. She's a detransitioner.
In my experience, I learned about trans through the internet at roughly about the age of 11 or 12. And I mean, it captivated me. I had body image issues, and it felt like I found the explanation for as to why I felt so different from the women around me.
Social media in general led you to believe the wrong idea, and that in turn what made you go down a path that maybe wasn't right for you.
I mean, it's beyond not right for me. This has left permanent effects on my body. I might not be able to have children. I have complications from the puberty blockers, the testosterone, and the surgery.
That's
3
correct.
years after I've stopped taking all of them.
I'm very suspicious about, okay, but I understand.
Are you calling her a liar?
No.
Are you sure about that?
I'd like to say that you're wrong about trans people being indoctrinated.
I've met hundreds of other detransitioners, some even younger than I was, and have come out of it with trauma that they're left with for life.
A detransitioned woman gives a wokey a much-needed reality check on transitioning.
But what's so terrifying with gender equality? I think we need to learn boys to be more sensitive, but also young girls to become more self-confident.
The problem with that is the data indicate that the consequence of the policies that you're promoting have maximized the differences between men and women. Because there's only two reasons that men and women differ. One is cultural and the other is biological. And if you minimize the cultural differences, you maximize the biological differences. So for example, on average, men are more interested in things and women are more interested in people. And that's actually the biggest difference we know of psychologically between men and women. In order to become an engineer, you have to be extraordinarily interested in things rather than people. Well, most of those people are men. And if you want to become a nurse, well, then you have to be much more interested in people than you are in things. And most of those people are women. And so you get differences in occupational choice that are mostly due to biological differences, and you cannot minimize that by social engineering.
Jordan Peterson dismantles a wokie's arguments on gender equality with precision and factual clarity.
What would you say to feminists who are in support of trans women being able to access historically women's spaces like female bathrooms and being able to participate in women's sports?
So let me ask you a question. What is cheating?
What is cheating? Somebody using their power against the weak.
Got it. Okay. Is Leah Thomas or William Thomas biologically stronger than the competitors that she was against?
I don't know about that specific situation.
Won the national title.
Yes.
Okay.
Won
Well,
the national title.
after the transition, right? Okay. Is that fair?
Yes.
So the other women against the man were born with less bone density, lower testosterone levels. What are they supposed to do to make it even? Got it. And you're a feminist?
I am.
What women are you trying to protect?
Women. All women.
I wish you well in the coming situation where now as a feminist, you're going to have to live under the tyranny of men who think they're women. Thank you for being here tonight.
Charlie Kirk goes all out, destroying feminist arguments about trans women in women's spaces and sports. For more enlightening debates and jaw-dropping takedowns, click on the screen right now.